The story begins with the main character and the girls next to him excitedly discussing that someone confessed to Xiaojung again. The guy told his partner in a disgruntled voice that he didn't have any feelings for her. He didn't want her to waste any more time on him. The schoolgirl asked the guy in a frightened voice why he rejected her. And who would he like? Xiao asked his partner with displeasure if she would leave him alone if he answered her question. The main character turned around as he said goodbye and told his frightened partner that he liked bitches. Xiao looked at his partner and explained to her in an angry voice that he was not happy with people who thought it was okay to be like that. Xiao looked at his partner and said that he liked natural-born bitches. She would never be like that. The frightened girl couldn't understand how the guy could say such words to her. The schoolgirls around couldn't understand how the guy could talk about this so openly. A nurse with a bandage on her arm came up from behind. She asked the guy in a stern voice, "Does he really like bitches?" The head of the disciplinary committee was named Bai An. She told the boy in a displeased voice that he was saying very shameless things. Xiao was very unhappy that Bao appeared next to him at such an inopportune moment. The guy turned around with displeasure and put his hand on his face. He told the girl to leave him alone. She wanted to go home. Bao angrily explained to the guy that she wouldn't have come there if it weren't for his loud statements. An, with very dexterous and quick movements, wrote out the main character's violations in a notebook. Bao, from behind, threatened the guy in an angry voice that he could be held accountable for his bad words and behavior. The protagonist turned away. He told the girl that he would now go to the principal and ask him to punish him. The schoolgirl came up to him and asked him in an angry voice, "Why is she causing trouble for the guy?" She was deep in thought. The thought occurred to him that a lonely soul could get stuck in reality. The girls continued to argue heatedly among themselves. The guy thought that at least the schoolgirls were ordinary people. The guy stepped aside. He thought sadly to himself that he himself was abnormal. The head of the discipline committee seemed stern and intimidating to him. He decided that she would never have a boyfriend. Bao turned around angrily. She looked at the guy with a burning gaze. The school children began to run away at that moment. A student approached from the side and told Bao in a frightened voice that this was all very cruel. Anan explained to her partner that the members of the disciplinary committee were supposed to maintain order. A schoolgirl excitedly told Bao about a strange artist who studied at the school and drew unhealthy pictures. Anan slyly promised her partner that if she found this artist, she would personally take him to the police. The student sat and drew a comic book with a romantic plot with girls. She was very absorbed. The artist sat with a pencil near the screen. She told herself that she couldn't draw school scenes anymore. She wanted to play with something. The artist looked closely at her painting. She pulled back her clothes and said that perhaps the shapes should be lower. The student sat at the computer. She decided to add more excitement to her characters' faces and curiosity to their eyes. On her bed lay the clothes of a disciplinary committee employee. Bao adjusted her glasses on her face. She looked at her picture with great joy. The girl considered herself a comic artist. Anan held a pen in her hand. She remembered that there had been a lot of dissatisfied comments about her last week. The artist read the comments and crushed her pen with all her might. She was upset that users wanted more perverted stories from her. A schoolgirl's desk rang. She received a message. Her employer informed her that she had hit rock bottom in popularity. She was threatened with dismissal. Bao was very angry when she realized that she had been threatened with termination of her work. She had fought very hard to get published. The artist carefully read all the comments online. She decided that she really couldn't do anything on her own. Bao quickly and abruptly ran away. She told herself that she couldn't do anything about it. She needed to be inspired by something. Anan decided to start using her hereditary forbidden magic as soon as possible. She began printing documents on a computer printer. The girl put on a witch's hat and shouted that she wanted to summon the most obscene creature into this world. Anan placed her hand on the document on the table. She first needed to create a summoning circle. Then she needed to cast a spell and drip blood to sign the contract. Bao leaned forward, sorting through the sheets of paper with magical inscriptions in her hands to arrange them. The girl placed the sheets of paper on the ground. They had a magic circle depicted on them. Bao prepared to cast a spell. The magic circle beneath the girl glowed very brightly. She shouted that she was singing an ode to monsters and summoning them. She needed a minion. Bao bit her finger a little. She needed blood to call someone to her. Anan extended a bloody finger in front of her. She angrily shouted for the henchman to come to her. Suddenly, the magic circle below the girl sparkled very brightly. A pentagram appeared. Bao looked ahead with excitement. She realized that she had truly succeeded. She decided that she had created tentacles. Tentacles were a universal attribute of monsters. In her fantasies, the girl saw a huge monster with a red eye. She wanted to summon it. Bao said to herself in a disgruntled voice that now was not the time for her to retreat. The girl looked ahead. She wanted to force her readers to watch her comics. The witch summoned slime-covered tentacles to appear before her. They were supposed to wriggle at the slightest touch. Meanwhile, the protagonist sat and dined on noodles from a bucket. Anan summoned the most depraved of all evils into the earthly world. The protagonist ate his dinner in surprise. Something brightly sparkled before him. Suddenly, the protagonist and his dinner were transported and found themselves sitting directly across from the girl. They looked at each other in fear. Xiao licked his fork with food and looked closely at the pictures on the floor. He was intrigued by these sketches. The guy told the girl in a sly voice that the head of the disciplinary committee had such a hidden identity. Her nickname was the Wise Dirty Bai. The girl wanted to object. The main character said in a thoughtful voice that he understood who these rumors were about. Xiao looked at the girl attentively and angrily. He repeated her name in a cunning voice. The artist grabbed her head with her hands. She told the guy with a smile that he was mistaken. Xiao looked closely at the clothes on the bed. He asked the girl with displeasure, "Whose uniform with the committee armbands is this?" Bao tried to justify herself. She told the guy it was just cosplay. Xiao looked closely at the picture. He said with suspicion that this sketch looked very similar to the classroom building of their school. The girl explained to the guy that many of the buildings here were similar to each other. The protagonist found a document on the floor. He told the schoolgirl that it was her ID card. Bao shouted to her friend in a frightened voice that her room was a mess. The dissatisfied Bao rushed to the guy and demanded that he give her the document as soon as possible. The artist held the card in her hands, terrified. She couldn't figure out where she'd gone wrong. She figured the guy would use the opportunity to get revenge on her. Xiao told his partner in an angry voice that she had just used magic to summon him. The protagonist suspiciously told the girl that he had a couple of questions for her. Bao, frightened, decided to herself that the schoolboy wanted to find out her secrets. The student grabbed a huge bat in her hands. She told the frightened boy that she would have to tell him something. Bao stood with a bat in her hands. She told the guy in an angry voice that she knew something about memory-erasing magic. The protagonist looked at the girl with fear. He didn't understand what kind of erasing magic she wanted to use against him. Bao rushed forward at the guy. The protagonist thought to himself that a lonely soul can get stuck in reality. Sooner or later, everyone begins to yearn for a saccharine pink life. Xiao glanced at the schoolgirl in front of him with fear. He thought that at least the rest of the people were ordinary. The frightened Bao could no longer stay on her feet. She fell on top of the guy. Xiao thought he was crazy. Ann screamed loudly and angrily. She couldn't understand why that old story about the happy pervert had only just popped into her head. Bao looked ahead in horror. She saw how huge blue tentacles began to grow on the guy. The artist looked at the guy with great concern. She didn't understand what was happening. Xiao glanced slyly at the girl. He told her in a displeased voice that she had already seen his tentacles. There was a bright magical glow around the guy. He answered the girl that he wouldn't have to explain much to her now. The tentacles continued to develop around the protagonist. He told the girl in a displeased voice that these tentacles from his body were somehow connected to her. Bao repeated the words about tentacles to herself in a worried voice. She looked at the guy with fear. The girl was overjoyed when she saw the tentacles in front of her. She realized that her summoning of the monster had worked. The main character was very surprised when he heard such words from the girl. He mumbled in confusion. Bao looked around happily. She was pleased that she was entangled in tentacles. The room was brightly lit. There were paintings all around. Bao slyly asked the guy, "Does he really reject all the girls because he's become like this?" She sat on the floor. He explained to his partner in a sad voice that when he feels nervous, tentacles appear from his body. That's why he pushes everyone away. The artist quickly drew something on a piece of paper. She angrily told the guy that maybe he just likes being rude to girls. The protagonist recalled that shortly before his first classes at school, he had developed this problem. He couldn't understand why he had grown tentacles. The protagonist very realistically imagined himself sitting in a cage at the zoo with tentacles. Someone was pointing a frightened finger at him. The guy saw very realistically as if someone had started chopping his tentacles into pieces. Xiao concentrated and realized that he had to endure everything. He was waiting to see what the girl would draw for him. Bao showed her new friend a drawing. It depicted herself surrounded by tentacles. The guy angrily demanded that she never show him that again. The artist continued to draw something on the piece of paper, focused. She didn't know how to turn people into magical creatures. She had never heard of anything like that. Xiao anxiously asked his partner if she was lying. The artist told him that she could only tell him one thing for sure. The girl smiled slyly at the guy. She told him that summoning magic considered him an obscene evil. Xiao felt scared and depressed. He was filled with loneliness and rejection. Bao continued to persistently draw something. She said that she was very lucky. In front of her was a monster, a man with tentacles. She wanted the guy to be her reference for future works. The artist excitedly extended her hand forward. She shouted to the boy that she would watch him and draw even more realistic scenes. Ultimately, her manga would be saved. She sat and silently looked ahead. He thought deeply and carefully about the girl's proposal. The protagonist headed for the exit of the room. He told the girl goodbye that they would see each other at school. The artist sat on the floor, dissatisfied and surprised. The artist looked at her piece of paper. She shouted after the guy to stop. Xiao felt near the door that he could no longer move. The schoolgirl put her hand on the boy's shoulder. She asked him with displeasure. Is a call really such a simple thing for him? Bao approached the surprised boy and grabbed him by the tentacles. She slyly told him that a contract exists to prevent summoned creatures from getting out of control. The artist looked at the guy angrily. She held him by the tentacles and slyly asked, "Can he really run away like that?" The protagonist turned to the girl with displeasure and asked what contract she was talking about. Bao hugged her friend from behind. She slyly told him about the two bodies, one heart contract. Bao released the tentacles from her hands. She told the guy that if something happened to her, it would happen to him too. She angrily warned Xiao that his body belonged to her, and she could do whatever she wanted with it. The main character looked at the girl with fear. He asked with excitement, "Will she really do whatever she wants with him?" The frightened boy ran away. He couldn't understand who could possibly like such a manga. The boy stopped. He asked the girl with displeasure if she was afraid he would turn her in. Bao, standing behind him, warned the student in a sly voice about the consequences of his actions. Xiao warned her friend in a seductive voice that men's and women's bodies are built differently. Even if they do the same thing, the movements may be the same, but the results will be different. The artist put her hand in front of her. She angrily asked the guy if he knew what amazing things she could do with him. The girl glanced at the guy with a sly look, while reaching her hand down. The protagonist looked down in front of him with fear. He felt an unpleasant excitement and a discomfort. After a short pause, the guy realized he had no other choice. He told the girl that he gave up. The artist stood behind him and looked closely at the tentacles on his back. The girl looked away. She was deep in thought. She decided that she could have gone very far. She remembered that she had summoned the monster herself, so she had no other choice. The girl confidently told herself that she couldn't pass up such an opportunity. She wanted her comics to be the best. She had to do everything to achieve this goal. The artist extended her hand forward. She told the Strictly guy from behind that he could live for now. She had to think about what to do next. Xiao asked the girl with displeasure, "Doesn't she really have a plan?" The protagonist told his new girlfriend in a sly voice that they would get straight to the point. He extended his tentacles towards her. Tentacles began to envelop the girl's body. She was so afraid she couldn't move. Bao waved her hands in fear. She asked the guy with displeasure, "What does he want from her?" The guy reminded the artist in a disgruntled voice that she had been brave at first. Now something had happened to her. Xiao explained to his partner that he could control his tentacles. There was no sense of touch on them. The girl's hands were wrapped in tentacles. She looked away in fear and asked how she would draw. Bao looked ahead with a frightened look. The protagonist freed her hand with his tentacles. The girl screamed in a frightened voice at the guy to let her go. The main character turned her upside down. The artist drew in her comic how the main character used his tentacles to twist her in different directions. The schoolgirl was surprised that her comic's reputation had actually improved. She couldn't understand why she kept getting the same readers. The girl sat at the table. She said with displeasure that some reader no longer thought she had never seen tentacles. Bao turned away. She asked the guy with displeasure, "What is he doing fiddling with his phone?" The guy continued tapping his finger on the screen. He told the girl with a smile that he was replying to a message. The main character got angry. He pressed the button on his phone, but couldn't send the message. The girl from above glanced slyly at the guy. She told him that she was more of an observer when drawing. The shot was not bad, but she wanted to draw a full body. The artist glanced slyly at the boy and said they could buy him a rubber doll. The protagonist angrily demanded that the schoolgirl stop talking nonsense. The girl handed the guy a draft and asked what he thought about it. Xiao extended his hand in return and told the girl that she was very fast. The protagonist looked attentively at the draft. A surprised girl stood next to him. The protagonist looked slyly at the drawing. After this, magical changes began in his body. His tentacles began to disappear next to the guy. He said in a thoughtful voice that the work was very calming. The artist from the side asked the guy with displeasure, "Is everything really that badly drawn?" The guy looked closely at the drawing. He told the worried girl that the plot was ordinary and no different. He didn't understand who read comics for the plot anyway. The protagonist slammed the painting down on the table with all his might. He demanded that the artist not underestimate her readers. Because of the girl's opinion, her work was becoming increasingly boring. The main character told the artist in a menacing voice that the less plotless love there was, the better it would be. The girl told the guy in a dissatisfied voice that they now needed to find another way. Bao slyly told the guy he could come over and meet someone. She would watch him and copy him. The end result would be perfect. The girlfriend pointed her finger at the frightened guy. She demanded that he show his true face and conquer others. The protagonist was surprised when he heard such words from his partner. He realized that this was not what he meant. The artist sternly demanded that the frightened guy show his true face and conquer others. Xiao smiled slyly at the guy and said that he could now fall in love with a variety of beauties. The guy asked his girlfriend with displeasure, "Did he really pour out his heart to her?" He had told her before that he couldn't start a relationship. The frightened protagonist shouted to his partner in a disgruntled voice that he would rather die. The schoolgirl naively asked her partner if he had really told her anything. A brilliant idea just occurred to her. Xiao was dissatisfied with the girl's constant changing of the subject. The friend approached the guy and told him not to worry. She explained that if he was discovered, they would both be in trouble. Bao approached the guy near the bed. She said that they were now in the same boat. She had to find a way to help him. The main character was very scared. The artist explained to the guy that she was not asking him to go to extremes. Bao told the guy in an angry voice that he shouldn't be such an animal who only thinks dirty thoughts around a girl. Xiao nervously replied to his partner that he certainly wasn't like that. The girl slyly approached the guy and asked if there would be any problems. Siu explained to her friend that he would simply communicate with girls and make them fall in love with him. She would get inspiration for her comics. He would not suffer from such a collaboration. The artist glanced slyly at the boy. She promised to lift the curse that had turned him into a tentacled monster. The protagonist anxiously asked the girl, "Will she really make him a normal person again?" The artist answered the guy that it was exactly so. Bao glared at the boy. She told him she was a witch with a 1,000-year-old family heritage. She couldn't lift his curse right away. First, she needed to find out the cause. The girl smiled slyly at the guy. She wanted him to help her with the comics. In return, she promised to give him his old life back. The protagonist thought deeply. He realized that he would have to agree to the girl's proposal. After a short pause, the guy shouted to his partner in a joyful voice that he agreed to her proposal. The girl looked slyly at the guy and cheerfully said that all this was very wonderful. The artist stretched her leg under the bed and wanted to get a large bag. The girl waved her leg in front of the guy. She took a large bag from under the bed. Xiao looked at the object in front of him with great fear. He did not understand what it was. The main character thought to himself with great excitement that he had seen this plot in many comics. Frightened and excited, Xiao decided that Podrushka had probably drawn this scene herself. The protagonist decided that there might be something indecent inside the bag. The girl looked at him carefully. The artist began to open a large suitcase. She joyfully told the guy that they now needed to find a victim. The girl opened the suitcase and various photographs began to fall out onto the floor. The artist was holding a bag in her hands. Pictures were falling out of it onto the floor. Xiao looked at the fallen photographs in surprise. The artist stopped. She anxiously asked the guy what he was thinking. Xiao answered the girl that nothing of the sort had happened. The guy saw photographs of their classmates on the floor. She reached out to the picture and wanted to take it. He said it looked like a photo from a personal file. Bao slyly explained to the guy that the school once took photos of students for advertising. She secretly made copies back then. The protagonist held a picture of a teacher. He angrily asked the artist, "Was this really done illegally?" The artist replied that they needed to find their primary target now. Bao looked closely at the photographs on the floor. She told the guy that to attract readers there needs to be something special. The protagonist held a picture in his hands. He asked his partner with displeasure, "Are there really such candidates at school?" The artist continued rummaging through the photographs. She said it would be difficult to find the right one. The girl was absorbed in searching for the right picture. After that, her efforts were crowned with success. The artist showed the protagonist a photograph. She joyfully told him that his target would be Chao King Suo. The protagonist asked his partner in surprise how he was supposed to do all this. Xiao explained that it was not difficult at all. The protagonist recalled that Chao King-su was the most popular girl in school. She often rejected guys. The guy knew that the girl's parents owned the school, so anyone who offended her could be expelled. The artist cheerfully told the protagonist that this plot was perfect for a comic. Chao's student family is wealthy, and she isn't interested in other men. Xiao calmly explained to his partner that it's impossible to change one's sexual orientation. The artist told the astonished boy in a sly voice that he would then have to become a woman. The protagonist was very shocked when he heard such words from the girl. He didn't want to agree to her proposal. The guy jumped back in fright. He asked the girl with fear what she was planning. The artist hugged the guy. She told him to disguise himself as a girl so he could seduce Xiaoqing Yue. The next day, the protagonist came to school. He changed his clothes exactly so that Chao would like it. The guy realized he would have to play for high stakes. He was wearing a schoolgirl's clothes. Then he looked at himself in surprise. The students in the courtyard looked in amazement at the main character in the form of a girl. Someone said that this beautiful schoolgirl had a killer figure. Xiao grabbed the edges of his clothes in fear. They were very unusual for him. The guy felt very uncomfortable. He thought that if the tentacles hadn't been destroyed, he would never have dressed like that. The students came up to the side and glanced at the new girl. They noticed that she was wearing their school uniform. The girl came up to the side and looked closely at the new student. This student seemed familiar to her. The student from behind put her hand on the frightened protagonist's shoulder and called him a classmate. Frightened, Xiao turned back. He looked at the girl with great excitement. The schoolgirl looked at the protagonist with great attention and interest and asked if they had met before. Xiao, frightened, replied that he didn't think so. A girl ran up to the side and grabbed her friend Xiaofi by the hand. She asked in fear, what was she doing? The girlfriend apologized to the girl. After that, they quickly began to walk away. The girl pulled her friend forward across the schoolyard. She reminded her that just yesterday the main character had rejected her. And here she was starting such strange conversations. Xiao decided to himself that he needed to find a quiet place so he wouldn't be recognized. A car pulled up from the side. The girl joyfully pointed to the side and said that her sister had arrived. The car stopped. The maid opened the door and told the mistress to get out. A schoolgirl with violet eyes appeared on the street. Her maid stood next to her with a briefcase. The girls in the courtyard said with great admiration that Chao Qingsui had come to visit her. The protagonist turned back carefully. He carefully examined the student Chao. Xiao noted to himself that the girl had a very cold aura. He didn't know how he could start a conversation with her. The guy felt very embarrassed. He was paralyzed with fear. The girl looked at him from the side with displeasure. Xiao looked at Xiao with displeasure and angrily asked why she was staring at her like that. The protagonist waved his arms in fear and shouted that there was nothing wrong. The guy wasn't sure whether he should give the girl the opportunity to leave or take the opportunity to chat her up. The protagonist looked at the girl with fear as she walked past him. He decided that she was in a bad mood today. Xiao watched as the schoolgirl walked away from him. He didn't know what to do next. The protagonist realized he hadn't had time to talk to the student. Meanwhile, someone was watching him from the side through binoculars. Xiao climbed onto the roof. Bai stood near the railing. She told him that he had done well. Bao told her partner with a grin that only such girls were worthy of their attention. Xiao, dressed as a schoolgirl, told his partner in a dissatisfied voice that he could be burned. Bao told the guy in an angry voice that even if he was caught, it would be better this way. The student said in a sly voice that Chao was getting close to a girl she knew. And then she would suddenly discover that his lover was actually a guy. The artist very realistically imagined Chao's desperate, beautiful face when she found out about everything. Bao imagined the expression on a schoolgirl's face when love and disgust were intertwined. The protagonist extended his hand and said that she did not have to continue. Xiao was displeased. He thought to himself that if he was discovered, the fans would tear him to pieces. Bao looked slyly at her friend. She asked him to put his whole heart and soul into this matter. She would ask the student council for help. The schoolgirl told the protagonist in a cunning voice that he had to win Chao's heart and started dating her. The main character sat pensively at his desk in a school classroom. Girls looked at him from the side and thought he had a good figure. At that moment, someone came up from the side and sat down at the desk. Xiao glanced to the side and noticed that Chao Qingsui had sat down next to him. The boy decided that he was lucky. The teacher approached the board. She told the students to start the roll call and get ready for the lesson. Xiao waved happily at the schoolgirl from his seat and greeted her. Chao greeted the new student back without turning around. She was busy with something of her own. The protagonist was surprised to feel as if there was an icy wall between him and the girl. The teacher called the schoolgirl's name, and she stood up. The woman found Xiao Zheng's name in the class register and called out loudly to the student. The main character, after hearing the name, suddenly jumped up from his desk and said that he was there. The teacher turned around. She told Xiao that he was now new to the class and could sit down. The girls were sitting at the table and talking among themselves. They decided that Xiao Zheng was a very beautiful name. The student reminded her friend that the popular guy had the exact same name. He just had a different character in his name. Xiao turned away with displeasure. She repeated Xiao Zhen's name to herself. The protagonist felt very much like a schoolgirl. He didn't like that Bai had made all this up for him. The boy was frightened when he heard something from the side saying that the new girl looked like their classmate Xiao Zhen. The angry teacher slammed her hand on the table with all her might. She told the agitated schoolgirls in an angry voice to stop this guessing game. The woman told the students in a disgruntled voice that there was no way the new girl could have dressed up as a boy or faked the school admissions process. The main character smiled joyfully to himself when he heard these words from the teacher. The woman told Xiao in a stern voice to sit down and not pay attention to the words of the other students. The protagonist sat down in his seat. He decided that he needed to get along with Xiao as soon as possible. Xiao looked closely at his neighbor. He realized that he needed to at least close the distance with her. After a short pause, Xiao called the main character by name. She looked away. She responded with great excitement as he told the girl her name. She turned to him in surprise. The main character told his neighbor that he wanted to sit next to her and read from her textbook. Xiao turned around and looked at the guy with great distrust. After a short pause, she told him that she agreed. Xiao abruptly moved his chair over and sat close to the girl. He was glad of her consent. The main character looked happily at the book on the table. Next to him sat the silent Xiao. Xiao was delighted. He thought to himself that it had been difficult for him at first. The most difficult step had now been taken. The main character sat and looked attentively at his neighbor at the table. She paid no attention to him. Xiao looked at the schoolgirl with great attention. He didn't know what he should do now. The protagonist decided he could pretend to lose consciousness and fall on his neighbor. The guy was afraid he might not be able to withstand such contact. The guy decided that he could jump on top of the desk and do weird things to attract the student. The protagonist decided he could simply take the initiative now. He imagined Chao's face being in his hands. Xiao very quickly thought over the possible options and realized that all of this was unsuitable for him. The guy turned around and looked to the side. He realized that at this rate he wouldn't achieve any results at all. Chao extended her hand from the side and very unexpectedly placed it on the frightened guy's knee. The protagonist felt very embarrassed. He didn't understand what the girl was doing. Chao came close to the guy. She asked him with concern if everything was okay. Her hand was still on Xiao's leg. The protagonist glanced away in fear. He didn't understand why his neighbor was paying so much attention to him. Chao studied the guy closely. She told him that he looked unwell. The schoolgirl told the frightened Xiao with concern that he looked a little nervous. The protagonist looked at his neighbor with fear. He didn't understand why she was paying so much attention to him. Chao looked at the boy with an attentive, predatory gaze. He could still hear her repeating his name. Xiao imagined his neighbor sitting right next to him. Her voice still echoed in his mind. The guy saw very realistically how the girl hugged him and pulled him towards her. The protagonist looked at his neighbor with fear. He repeated her name to himself. Chao Qingsue. Chao put her hand on the guy's knee. He asked her fearfully, "Where is the toilet?" The main character ran sharply down the school corridor. He shouted that he needed to go urgently. She stopped in the school corridor. He thought for a moment and decided that he had misunderstood everything. The guy decided that he had fallen in love instantly. He needed to talk to Bai about it. The protagonist stood near two doors. His main problem was which one to enter now. The guy thought for a moment and realized he couldn't get into the men's restroom right now. He decided to head to the women's. Xiao confidently ran forward into the booth. He decided that this was the first and last time he was doing this. The protagonist held his clothes and stood inside the stall. He decided that he would go to the toilet at home every morning by himself and then not drink anything for the whole day. Xiao turned to the side and was very surprised. He very clearly heard the door inside the toilet open. Xiao abruptly opened the door and jumped out of his cubicle. He angrily asked who came in. The stranger inside the toilet said in a didactic voice that girls don't clean themselves like that. The main character inside the room asked in fear, "Who came?" Bao ran inside the booth. She told the guy with fear that it was her. Xiao was surprised when he saw Anan in front of him. Xiao asked the girl with displeasure, "Did she really follow him to the toilet?" He didn't understand how she opened the door. Bao told her friend in a cunning and proud voice that she opened the door with magic. The guy didn't understand why his friend was so proud of it. The schoolgirl hid a large magnet in her pocket. The protagonist anxiously asked her what she was holding in her hand. The girl, in a sly voice, told the guy that she was holding toilet paper. The main character, inside the toilet stall, asked the girl with displeasure, "What does she want from him?" Bao lifted the guy's clothes and told him in a sly voice that he was dressed very nicely. Xiao looked at the girl's hands on his clothes with fear. He asked her with excitement, "What was she talking about?" The protagonist excitedly told his partner that something strange had just happened. He briefly locked eyes with the student. She saw the girl change very quickly. Her eyes were clouded and her shirt was unbuttoned. The protagonist felt the girl come very close to him, as if she wanted not only to kiss him but even to eat him. He couldn't move. Xia recalled with great fear that he felt as if he had been bewitched by his deskmate. Bao asked her friend with great excitement, "Could it be that he was bewitched as if by magic?" After a short pause, the girlfriend told the guy in a joyful voice that she understood everything. Bao slyly extended her hand to the guy. She told him that he was enchanted by the girl's beauty. Xiao explained to his friend in a dissatisfied voice that she didn't understand anything. The student looked slyly at the protagonist. She told him in a stern voice that she had interfered with his happiness. That was precisely why he had come to the restroom. Suddenly, the guy extended his hand forward. He covered the frightened girl's mouth with it so that she wouldn't scream. Bao wanted to scream something loudly and fearfully. The guy was covering her mouth at that time. The protagonist approached his girlfriend. He told her in a frightened voice that someone had entered the restroom. Two girls were chatting. The schoolgirl told her friend Xiaofei that she was acting a little strange today. The protagonist pressed his hand to the girl's face with all his might. They stood silently together in the booth. Bao was very unhappy. She wanted the guy to quickly remove his hand from her face. Two female students were talking inside the room. One of them said that boys need to be approached differently. The schoolgirl confidently told her friend that the guy needed to be knocked out and dragged away. Meanwhile, Xiao stood with his friend inside the booth. The main character felt the girl move closer to him. After that, he abruptly pushed her back. Bao moved closer to her friend and placed her hand on his face. She didn't want the guy to make any noise. The girl walked away. She told her friend that she would wait for her in the classroom. Xiaofei prepared to go into the toilet stall. Bao covered the protagonist's mouth with her hand. She didn't want to be exposed. Xiao was surprised by her friend's strange look. The protagonist was surprised by the girl leaning even closer to him. He couldn't take it anymore. Bao came close to the guy with her body. The surprised schoolgirl noticed how a button suddenly came off her body. Large tentacles emerged from the protagonist's body. The girlfriend screamed in excitement. Xiao wanted to calm down as quickly as possible. The tentacles enveloped the girl from all sides. She shouted at the guy to try to relax. Xiaofeng was standing inside the room. She heard someone moving in the toilet stall. The girl got scared. She heard that there were two girls inside the booth. She turned around and ran quickly to the exit. Bao was entangled in tentacles on all sides. The protagonist told his girlfriend that he couldn't control his tentacles. He should have waited, and they would have disappeared on their own. Xiao told his girlfriend in a frightened voice that it seemed to him as if something hard was pressing against him. After that, the guy got scared. Bao suddenly flew out of the toilet stall. The protagonist shouted at her that he had really underestimated her. The schoolgirl told the boy in a frightened voice that she only had a magnet with her. Zhao was surprised to hear such words from the girl. Bao turned away. She promised her friend that she would help him get closer to Chao. The protagonist sat on the floor near the wall. He asked his girlfriend, "Does she really have a plan?" Bao cheerfully explained to the guy that, of course, she had a plan. The schoolgirl explained to the main character in a joyful voice that, according to the plot, the hero would save the heroine. Xiao was sitting on the floor. He turned around and asked the girl, "Does she really want him to save Chao?" Bao, surprised, told her friend that he must be joking. The girlfriend looked slyly at the protagonist. She promised him that Chao would save him. The protagonist sat on the floor in the corner of the restroom. He asked the girl if she had a plan. Bao replied that she did. The student extended her hand to the side. She told the protagonist that the hero would now save the heroine. Xiao turned around with displeasure and asked his partner, "Does she really want him to save Chao?" The schoolgirl, surprised, explained to her friend that he was probably joking. Bao told her friend with a cunning voice and a smile that this Chao would save him. Xiao explained to the schoolgirl in a thoughtful and dissatisfied voice that all this could turn out to be not in their favor. Bao adjusted the buttons on her clothes. She asked her friend, "Did he really just have time to talk to Chao?" The guy replied with a dissatisfied voice that it was exactly like that. Bao approached the guy. She told him in a stern voice that Chao was still just a human being in any case. The schoolgirl explained to the guy that he would have paid attention if his new acquaintance had disappeared somewhere. Chao was sitting at her desk. She was surprised to notice that her neighbor had not yet returned to class. The schoolgirl decided that her new friend was lost or perhaps had a stomachache. After classes ended, Chao stood up from her seat and prepared to leave. The other two schoolgirls were chatting near their desks. Chao was standing in the school hallway. She decided to go and look for her new deskmate. The schoolgirls stood in the hallway. They looked at their new student in surprise. Chao approached them from behind. The students saw Xiao standing next to the head of the disciplinary committee. They were talking animatedly about something. The protagonist thought to himself with fear that Bai had proposed a stupid idea. Many people were looking at them around. Bao told Xiao in a stern voice that according to school rules, she had to wear a clean and tidy uniform. She wasn't allowed to tuck her jumper into her skirt. Bao grabbed the protagonist by his clothes and pulled him towards her. She sternly asked him, "What class is he from?" Bao told her partner in a stern voice that he had broken the rules of their school and that she had to punish him. At this time, Chao came up from the side and intervened in the conversation. She stopped the schoolgirl. Chao explained to her partner in a very dissatisfied voice that new students might not know all the rules. Bao looked angrily at Xiao and said that he must definitely follow all the rules of their school. Bao pointed a stern finger at the schoolgirls. She threatened them that she would punish them together. Chao approached his new girlfriend from behind. She said that the head of the disciplinary committee might punish them. Xiao turned around in great surprise and looked at his new acquaintance. He realized that she was very brave. Chao grabbed her new friend's hand to support her in a difficult situation. Chao pulled the protagonist aside. The guy was surprised that girls became friends so quickly. Bao waved at the guy from behind. The schoolgirl smiled slyly at the protagonist as she said goodbye. She winked at him cheerfully. Xiao looked ahead in anger and surprise. He didn't understand why the girl was winking at him. Xiao followed his new girlfriend in surprise. He asked Xiao, "Is it really okay to just leave like that?" His girlfriend explained to him that it's best to ignore people like Bao. The student looked sternly at the protagonist. She asked him to let her know if Bao was causing him any trouble. The boy replied that he would do so. Bao looked closely and only now, with great fear, realized that she was holding Xiao's hand. The schoolgirl suddenly pulled her hand away and anxiously asked the guy for forgiveness. The protagonist looked at the girl with fear. He realized that she was embarrassed because she grabbed him. Xiao looked away. She told Xiao that she was worried about him. He didn't return for a very long time in the middle of the lesson. Xiao waved his hands in front of him, frightened. He cheerfully told the girl that he was just nervous at school today. Xiao breathed a sigh of relief. She was now at peace about her new school friend. The schoolgirl explained to Xiao that she didn't want to help him right away. She just didn't like it when someone acted arrogantly. The protagonist realized with surprise that Xiao was too proud to admit her good side. Xiao looked happily after his new girlfriend. He was glad that he could turn to her if necessary. This was a good start. Suddenly, a guy ran up to the side. He called out to Chao Qingzu in a loud voice. The stranger in glasses shouted to the girl in an admiring voice that she had really come. The schoolboy ran down the stairs. He shouted to the student that she had read his letter, and that meant she agreed. The protagonist turned around and looked closely at Chow. He decided that her secret admirer had appeared in front of them. A student in glasses ran up and told a girl something. The protagonist stood to the side and watched with concern. Chow stood there looking very agitated. She was unpleasantly surprised by the guy's appearance. She looked at the girl with great attention. He didn't understand why she looked scared. Chow looked at the guy with great displeasure. She shouted at him that she didn't even know him. The schoolboy told the surprised girl with great excitement that they had seen each other briefly in physical education. Chow repeated to her partner in a very dissatisfied voice that she didn't know him and wanted to leave. The protagonist looked at the schoolboy with displeasure. He decided that this guy was being very impudent and that Bai had perhaps cast a spell on him. The schoolboy in glasses excitedly told the girl that she did it all herself. He accused her of seducing him. The guy rushed forward at the girl with a burning gaze. He kept repeating to her that it was she who seduced him. Chow was very surprised. She watched with great fear as the stranger extended his hand to her. The schoolgirl got scared and quickly leaned back to protect herself. At this moment, the protagonist ran up from the side just in time. With a quick and deft movement, he grabbed the schoolboy's hand with his own to protect the girl. Xiao held the guy's hand with his own. He told him in a displeased voice that he had gone too far. Xiao stared ahead, surprised that Xiao had come to her aid. The protagonist continued to hold the student's hand. The student asked Xiao with displeasure, "Who is he, and why is he meddling in other people's business?" The student with glasses told Xiao in an angry voice that he would not use force against him because he was a girl. Xiao was displeased when he heard such words from the schoolboy. He squeezed his hand with all his strength and broke it. The protagonist threatened the student in an angry voice that, if he continued to behave like this, he would be charged with a disciplinary action. The student couldn't understand where the fragile girl got so much strength. The student swung his hand sharply to the side. He was able to snatch it from Xiao's hands. The student quickly ran away. As he was leaving, he threatened the protagonist that they would meet again. Xiao turned to his new girlfriend. He asked her with a smile if everything was okay. The protagonist hugged the surprised schoolgirl. She looked at him with piercing surprise. Xiao suddenly jumped back and fell to the floor. He apologized to the schoolgirl and said that everything happened too quickly. He didn't have time to react. The main character stood on his feet. He looked at his new girlfriend with fear. Xiao turned around abruptly and walked away. Xiao looked after the girl with great fear and bewilderment. The schoolgirl stopped. She turned around and told the guy that they shouldn't linger there. The driver was carrying the girl inside the car. She greeted the lady. The woman noticed that her passenger was sitting in the seat with a beaming face. She asked the girl what had happened to her. Xiao looked thoughtfully ahead. She asked Xing if her heart had ever pounded like crazy. The driver told the girl that they almost lost the team match last night. She was so nervous that her heart was practically beating out of her chest. The son asked the lady in a frightened voice if she had really fallen in love with someone. From her seat, Xiao anxiously asked the driver, "Could it really be that she had fallen in love?" The bodyguard explained to the girl that she definitely had. Xiao looked ahead romantically. She said to herself in a thoughtful voice that she had fallen in love. A schoolgirl asked her bodyguard what she would do if she liked someone. Sin, smiling, decided to share her personal opinion with the girl. She advised the lady to act like a killer in this matter. The guard told the girl that she needed to hide her intentions until she was sure of victory. Sin asked the driver with great concern how a man would know about her feelings if she kept them to herself. Sin advised the lady to first conduct reconnaissance. If all went well, then she needed to strike the decisive blow. Xiao took off her shoes. She asked the driver how to deliver the finishing blow. Xing advised the passenger to give her some kind of shocking gift. Xiao was very shocked and surprised when she heard that some kind of shocking gift would be required. The protagonist was texting his girlfriend the next day. Bai advised his friend to take their relationship to the next level. Xiao reached the classroom. She turned to the protagonist and wanted to tell him something. The schoolgirl handed her deskmate a new textbook. Xiao extended his hand to the girl and thanked her. She sat in his seat. He noticed with surprise that Xiao had somehow moved away from him and sat at the back of the class. The main character got scared. He realized that he had screwed up in front of the girl, but he didn't know at what moment. Xiao turned away, displeased to realize that he would now have to find a new way to meet people. The main character opened the book he received as a gift. He looked inside with great surprise. Xiao glanced at the book and then slammed it shut with great excitement. He was very scared. The boy excitedly opened the book and decided to leaf through it again. He noticed something unusual inside. The astonished boy found women's underwear inside the book. He couldn't understand how it could have gotten there. Xiao sat in the back and looked closely at her textbook. She decided that her shocking gift to Xiao had been a success. The amazed guy looked inside the book. He couldn't understand how underwear could have ended up there. Xiao carefully examined the find inside the book. It looked as if it had been taken very recently. The excited protagonist thought that he could now be holding a textbook of Chao Qingshu in his hands. The protagonist turned around in fear and looked at his new girlfriend at the desk. He decided that the find in the book could have belonged to her. Xiao sat and calmly read a textbook. The shocked Xiao couldn't believe that such a cold and unapproachable girl could do such a thing. The schoolgirl asked Xiao with concern, "Is something really wrong?" The boy abruptly closed the book and turned around. Xiao slammed the book shut. He asked his friend what page they were on. Xiao told her friend to turn to page 24. The protagonist slipped the book under his desk and pulled out some underwear. He didn't want anyone to catch him off guard. Xiao put them in his pocket. He decided to sort it out later. After that, the guy looked at the girl. Xiao sat quietly and read a book. The protagonist decided that he would definitely find out later whose handiwork this was. The main character ran out into the school corridor. He shouted to his classmate to wait for him. Xiao was standing near the stairs. She turned around and asked Xiao, what did he want from her? The protagonist thanked his girlfriend with a smile for her help yesterday. Xiao thanked Xiao in return. They were now even. The schoolgirl, with a book in her hand, told Xiao that if that was all, she was ready to leave. An excited Xiao extended his hand after his girlfriend. He shouted that he wanted to ask her something. The guy asked the girl in a frightened voice if she had lost anything important. Xiao felt very embarrassed. Xiao went down the stairs in the hallway. She shouted to the guy that she had nothing to lose. The protagonist stood at the top of the stairs. He realized that Xiao hadn't done any of this. The guy looked ahead with great suspicion and interest. He didn't know who it could be. At that moment, the protagonist's phone rang. He saw that he had received a message from his girlfriend. She read the message on his phone with surprise. Bai told him that she had caught the right guy. Xiao was very happy and excited. She walked down the hallway and realized that Xiao had accepted her gift. The schoolgirl was delighted. She extended her hand down and decided that her friend considered her gift very important. That's why she didn't show it to anyone. Xiao thought happily and decided that Xiao really was very gentle. Inside the car, the driver asked the lady how her reconnaissance had gone. Xiao happily replied to her partner that the schoolgirl had been delighted with her gift. The driver asked the passenger in surprise what gift she had given the girl. Xiao looked down shyly. She said in a trembling voice that she had enclosed all her love in her gift. Xin happily thought that her mistress had given her friend some small gift. She decided that youthful love was very beautiful and pure. Xiao sat in her seat. She anxiously asked the driver what she should do next. Xing told the girl that she didn't need to do anything special. Xin explained to the girl that she had to make sure that her partner could no longer imagine his life without her. Xiao was happy when she heard such words from the driver. She cheerfully said that she understood. Xiao said in an angry voice that she needed to make sure that Xiao became only her thing. The woman was driving a car. For some reason, the passenger's words sounded strange to her. The driver turned to the lady and said that it was okay if she thought so. Xiao bowed to the woman. Xiao placed her hands on the book in her lap. She decided that she should encounter adversity as often as possible. Then her intentions would become even clearer. The schoolgirl decided to herself that if Xiao had encountered complaints from the disciplinary committee, it could only be an isolated incident. Something like this couldn't happen regularly. Xiao thought about it and decided that she could deliberately create a controlled cause. The schoolgirl thought for a moment. She decided that if Xiao was experiencing problems, it could all be an isolated incident. Something like this shouldn't happen regularly. Xiao decided angrily to herself that if the cause was beyond her control, then she could create a controllable cause. Bai was drawing the main character in her room. She asked the guy to raise his hands. After that, she wanted Xiao to squint and stick out his tongue slightly. Tentacles were wrapped around the main character's body at the request of his girlfriend. The delighted Bai, with excitement and a sparkle in her eyes, told the guy that all this was exactly what he needed. Xiao told the girl in an angry voice that no one in their right mind could like this. The schoolgirl continued drawing. She replied to her friend, "He's dressed like a girl." The image of a girl with tentacles was very popular. The protagonist turned around with displeasure at his girlfriend. He reminded her that they had a very important topic to discuss. Bai looked slyly at the guy and asked, "Is this really so?" She winked at him. The protagonist suddenly ran to the exit of the room. He shouted to the girl that he was going home. His girlfriend explained to the guy that she was only joking. The protagonist's girlfriend handed him a phone with a photo. She reminded him that he had told her about this schoolboy earlier. The main character saw a photo on his phone of a schoolboy tied up and wearing glasses on a chair. Bai looked at her phone. She explained to her friend that the guy's testimony differed from his words. The schoolboy excitedly explained that he didn't understand why he had done what he had done. After his meeting with Xiao at the stadium, it was as if his mind had been blown. The guy said in a frightened voice that the girl seemed to be constantly on his mind. Bai pushed her hands away from the table. At first, she planned to reveal Xiao's dirty secrets. In the end, even more questions arose. She was now sure the guy would never approach Xiao again. The protagonist asked his girlfriend why she was so sure. Bai looked slyly at the protagonist. She told him that the guy had mentioned something to her. The schoolboy remembered with a joyful voice that Xiao Deng had stopped him. The student looked up. He said that he was simply crazy about this girl. Bai put her foot on the chair next to the guy. He told her that Xiao was completely different from other girls. The schoolboy looked up thoughtfully. He said that the girl's threats didn't even offend him. The protagonist pulled out a knife. He realized that the student was definitely not all there. He needed to get rid of him. Bai stopped her friend with a smile. She explained to him that they could make the schoolboy his next target. Xiao asked his friend with displeasure what they had done with the boy in the end. Bai explained to her partner that they had given the student a lecture and then let him go. They would be keeping an eye on him for a couple of days. Bai held the phone in her hands. She told her partner in a sly voice that she didn't take the student's word for it. The girl handed the protagonist a phone with magic circles. She explained that she had conducted the interrogation under hypnosis. Xiao asked the girl with displeasure, "Does her magic really have to be so strange?" Bai turned around in her chair. She informed the guy that her magic was not a toy at all. During the interrogation, Bai asked the boy what he saw that day. The student answered his partner in a frightened voice that he didn't remember at all. Bai said in an excited voice that the guy had been hypnotized or was under the influence of a similar spell. The protagonist extended his knife toward the girl. He angrily asked her how the tentacle phenomenon was progressing. She replied that none of this had anything to do with the current situation. Bai excitedly explained to the guy that his case was special. It wasn't that easy to figure out. It was magic after all. The girl repeated the words about magic to herself. Then she pushed off with her foot and rolled her chair away from the table. The student told the main character in a cunning voice that there was another person in the school who knew how to use magic. Xiao looked at his girlfriend with a frightened look. He understood what she wanted to tell him. Bai reminded the protagonist that the schoolboy started acting strange after he saw Xiao. It was Xiao who could use magic. The girlfriend excitedly told the protagonist that he could have become like this because of Xiao Qing. The main character imagined a girl named Xiao. She was sitting and looking at him very angrily. The main character asked his girlfriend with great excitement if it was really because of Xiao that he had tentacles. The guy looked at the girl carefully. He reminded her that she herself was good at magic. Bai, with a phone in her hand, reminded the protagonist that they were in the same boat. There was no point in them arguing. The girl anxiously reminded the protagonist that he had heard her story. She pointed to a photo of the frightened schoolboy on her phone. Bai told the protagonist in a thoughtful voice that Xiao simply might not be able to control her magical powers. The girlfriend asked the guy with concern if he could guarantee that he had never made eye contact with Xiao. Bai shouted to the guy that she would personally take care of everything related to magic. He personally must now take possession of Xiao's heart. The main character, in a thoughtful voice, wanted to tell his girlfriend what happened between him and Xiao. Bai looked at the guy with fear and asked with concern what had happened to him. Xiao answered his partner that nothing interesting had happened. The protagonist was frightened. He realized that Bai would be very surprised if she found out that he had received her underwear as a gift from his school neighbor. The guy realistically imagined how his girlfriend would call him a pervert and start drawing a new comic. The main character clearly imagined how his girlfriend would draw a black and white girl in a new comic. Xiao became nervous and realized it was best for him to remain silent in this situation. Bai approached the guy and said that she found it interesting. Bai thought happily to herself that she had achieved her goal. She wasn't sure if Xiao could really use magic. The girl joyfully shouted to the protagonist that he now had a new motivation to conquer Xiao. Xiao walked thoughtfully and very sadly down the corridor. He realized that Bai's theory could very well be real. The protagonist remembered that he had become very close to Xiao very quickly, so he could attract the attention of her admirers. The boy opened the door and walked inside the classroom. He expected the classroom to be empty. Xiao was very surprised. He noticed that someone was already waiting for him inside the classroom. He was not alone. The main character greeted his school friend. The girl greeted him back. Xiao looked at the guy with displeasure. The protagonist said with a smile that there was no room for him today. A schoolgirl sat next to an open book. In a nasty voice, she told the protagonist that he could sit in front of her. Xiao approached the table. He told the student that he wanted to discuss a couple of unclear points from the book. Xiao was absorbed in reading. The student suddenly jumped up near her desk. She pointed her hand at the main character and shouted for him to look over his shoulder. Xiao turned back. The girl behind him was pointing her finger at the large spider on his back. The main character looked at the small spider in his palm with great surprise. The girlfriend asked Xiao anxiously, "Wasn't he afraid of the spider?" The protagonist remembered that he was dressed as a schoolgirl. Xiao carefully turned his gaze to the side. He realized that he needed to be scared now. The main character abruptly threw the spider aside with his hand and quickly ran around the classroom. She screamed loudly in a frightened and fake voice. He was scared because of the spider. At this time, the girl extended her hand from behind to place it on Xiao's back and calm him down. Xiao came close to the main character. She extended her hand towards him and looked at him carefully. The schoolgirl looked attentively at her deskmate. She wanted to tell her something. After a short pause, Xiao told Xiao that she was glad she was okay. The protagonist decided that his girlfriend was embarrassed to help him out of pride. Xiao walked up to his desk and prepared to sit down. Xiao was sitting behind him. He decided that his girlfriend was very cute. The main character sat down on his chair. He felt that something was smeared on it, and he didn't notice it. Could it really have been glue? Xiao looked closely at his chair. He was scared and realized that he needed to get up quickly. The protagonist jumped up from his chair. A piece of his clothing came off from behind. A schoolgirl next to him screamed in displeasure that someone had smeared the chair with glue. Xiao thought to himself in fright that someone had smeared a very effective glue on his chair. The main character stood in the center of the classroom. His clothes were torn off from behind. A schoolgirl ran up to him from the side. The girlfriend ran up to the main character from behind to cover him. He turned to look at her in surprise. Xiao grabbed the frightened boy in her arms to carry him away. The girls in the class joyfully said that their sister was very good. The protagonist in the girl's arms nervously told her that she didn't have to carry him. Xiao explained to the guy that they would talk to him at the medical center. The protagonist was in a hospital bed. He was horrified to see the girl preparing to leave him. The guy looked closely and saw that Xiao did not leave the door but slammed it. Xiao sensed something was wrong and became worried. He anxiously called out to his classmate Xiao. The protagonist asked the girl excitedly, "Why did she close the door?" The schoolgirl glanced at him slyly. Xiao took off some of her clothes. The guy asked the student excitedly why she was undressing. Xiao looked at his girlfriend in amazement. He couldn't understand what she had just done. Xiao stood silently and shyly next to the guy. He couldn't understand what she had just done. Xiao looked at the girl in front of him with fear. He didn't know where to look. The main character found the strength within himself and turned to his classmate in a dissatisfied voice. Xiao was lying on the bed. He angrily asked the girl, "Why did she take off her clothes?" Xiao looked at the guy with great surprise. She explained to him that she wanted to help him. The schoolgirl explained to Xiao that he could no longer wear his clothes, so she decided to give him hers. The main character looked at his girlfriend with concern. He realized that she might end up naked. Xiao asked the schoolgirl with great excitement, what would be left for her if she gave him her things? Xiao turned around and told the guy in a displeased voice that none of this mattered. The protagonist was surprised that the girl hadn't thought about it at all. The guy was deep in thought. He decided to look at all the events that had happened from the outside. The protagonist remembered how, at the very beginning, a spider fell on his shoulder. After that, because the seat was occupied, he had to sit in front. Xiao remembered very clearly that his girlfriend wanted to help him and carried him into the office. Then she closed the door. The schoolgirl handed the protagonist some clothes. She said he needed to change quickly. She sat on the bed. He looked at his school neighbor with great displeasure. She continued to demand that he change his things. The protagonist shouted at the girl in a very angry voice that she had set this all up herself. Xiao leaned aside in displeasure. He told the girl to think about herself. Xiao stepped aside, thinking slyly to herself that she still had other options. Xiao slyly thought that her friend was worried about her feelings. She thought that in the case of the spider, Xiao deliberately pretended that she was scared of the insect and let it go. The schoolgirl looked at Xiao happily. She decided that this student was different from the other girls. Xiao extended her hand to the surprised protagonist's face. She said that Xiao was very brave and kind. The girlfriend excitedly told the protagonist that she needed to take care of him now. She held the clothes in her hands in front of him. Xiao moved closer to Xiao. She decided that this friend of hers would belong only to her. The protagonist noticed with horror how the schoolgirl wanted to knock him down. He became very worried. Xiao swung her arm wide and threw the guy far back with all her strength. Xiao fell in fear. He fell onto the bed. He looked at the student with one eye. The guy called out to Xiao in a very excited voice. The schoolgirl answered him that they didn't need to be shy. The protagonist noticed with great fear how Xiao came even closer to him. A frightened Xiao asked his partner with great excitement what had happened to her. Xiao looked at the guy. She asked him slyly, "Is there really something wrong with her?" She felt quite normal. Xiao, frightened, replied in an excited voice that he always emanated an alluring aroma. The girl looked carefully at Xiao from above and told him about his smell. Xiao extended her hands towards the guy. The frightened guy shouted at her to stop. He couldn't let her see him not fully dressed. Xiao looked at the girl with great attention. He noted to himself that she was very close. He became very scared and realized that at this rate he could quickly lose control of himself. The main character stretched out his hands and wanted to stop her. Xiao looked ahead in surprise. He decided that there was someone else next to him. The boy heard some noise from the side. He turned around and asked the girl under the bed in a displeased voice what she was doing here. The student laughed slyly. Xiao looked down. He asked the girl with displeasure, "Was she really under the bed from the very beginning?" Bai slyly explained to the guy that she had used teleportation magic. The girlfriend said in a sly voice to the main character that she appeared here when Xiao pushed him onto the bed. The girl crawled out from under the bed and stretched. She said in a tired voice that she couldn't pass up such an opportunity. The protagonist sat on the bed and looked at the unconscious Xiao with great fear. Bai, standing at the side, said in a sly voice that she didn't expect to see the princess from such a side. The schoolgirl looked slyly at the main character and wanted to tell him something important. The girlfriend glanced closely at the unconscious Xiao. She excitedly told the protagonist that he had interesting hobbies. Xiao told his girlfriend in a frightened voice that everything here was beyond reasonable limits. He didn't understand what had happened to this girl. The girlfriend told the guy in a sly voice that all of this was a common plot device. Xiao explained to his girlfriend in a displeased voice that the situation needed to be sorted out. She sat on the bed with the tentacles. He said that when Xiao woke up, his identity might be revealed. Bai reminded the guy from the side that he had a partner. The girl next to her started pulling out a large bat from under her clothes. She told her friend she had a proven method. Xiao stood happily with a bat in her hand. She told the protagonist that she could simply use a memory-erasing magic trick. Xiao was very excited to ask her friend where she got the big stick from. The girl told him that items appearing from under clothing is a common plot device. The protagonist shouted angrily at his girlfriend for deciding to kill Xiao. Bai, holding a bat in her hand, shouted at the guy in a displeased voice that she was holding a magical object. If she had used spells directly against the schoolgirl, she could have erased all of her memory. The girl tapped her hand with the stick. She explained to the guy that it was much easier to cast a spell on an object. Bai explained to the protagonist that an ordinary thing might not work. It must necessarily correspond to human perception. If you hit someone hard with a bat, you can induce amnesia without any spells. The girl explained to the protagonist in a sly voice that few people are convinced that the bat can erase all memory. This perception problem allows one to control the power of the spell itself. The surprised protagonist asked the girl with great surprise, "Where did she get all this deep knowledge?" Bai looked happily at the lying girl. She said with a smile that one touch would be enough. Xiao was unconscious. Bai explained that after waking up, the girl would forget everything that happened. The protagonist, lying on the bed, asked the girl if she was sure there wouldn't be any problems. Bai placed the bat on her shoulder. She told the guy that she had already erased everything she needed. Cao might regain her memory if she experienced a strong emotional shock. The main character was scared. He didn't believe his girlfriend's words. The guy decided that after the words "bye," the probability was no longer zero. The schoolgirl headed for the exit of the room. She explained to the protagonist that if Xiao saw her, it would be more difficult to justify himself. The guy remained on the bed. Bai stopped with a bat on her shoulders. She wanted to tell the main character something else important. Bai turned around and in a sly voice told the guy not to have fun with Xiao to the point of losing his pulse. The student gradually began to come to her senses. With her eyes closed, she asked what had happened. Xiao opened her eyes and looked ahead with fear. She didn't understand what had just happened. The protagonist looked at the girl with great fear. He realized that she had begun to come to her senses. Xiao was very scared and didn't know what he should do. His tentacles still hadn't retracted into his body. The girl with her eyes closed stretched out her hand in front of her. She didn't understand where she was. Xiao came to her senses and looked around carefully. She didn't understand what she was doing on the bed. The girl heard that someone was next to her. She turned her head to the side with excitement. The main character asked his girlfriend with interest, "How is she feeling?" He tried to look calm. Xiu told his partner that she lost consciousness after they arrived at the medical center. The girl listened to the guy with disbelief. Xiao turned to Xiao and asked with displeasure, "What about his clothes?" The protagonist had already managed to change. Bai had brought him his clothes. Xiu told his partner with a smile that he had found new clothes for himself by chance in his locker. The size fit perfectly. Xiao looked away in surprise. She couldn't understand why she didn't remember anything. The main character decided to calm his new girlfriend down. He reached out and placed it on her shoulder. She stood next to the bed. He told the girl that she was just tired and should go home to rest. Xiao looked ahead in surprise. She kept thinking that something strange had happened to her. The girl was very excited. She thought she had passed out from an overabundance of emotions. Xiao recalled that she managed to take Xiao to the medical center, but nothing happened. The girl was riding inside the car. She thought with displeasure that she had passed out at the most crucial moment. The driver asked the passenger from the front seat if she was feeling unwell. The woman replied that she had nothing serious, just a slight headache. The driver handed the passenger a large bag of fruit. She told the girl that she would be examined by a doctor upon her return. The woman handed her passenger a banana and said that she should feel better after eating it. Xiao looked at the food in the driver's hands with great joy. She decided to try it. The schoolgirl held the fruit carefully and examined it from all sides. She was thinking about something. After this, very familiar memories began to surface in her mind. The girl looked at the banana in her hands with interest. She thought that she had already held fruits of a similar shape. Stretching out her hand, she couldn't remember what this familiar feeling was. The driver turned around in fear. She reminded her mistress that she needed to peel the fruit before eating. Observing her behavior, she told the lady that she was very absent-minded today. After a short pause, Xiao excitedly told her bodyguard that something had indeed happened to her. The girl looked at the banana in her hands with great attention. She suddenly thought of Xiaodong. Xiao continued to twirl the fruit in her hands. She had an unusual feeling. She wanted to see Xiao. A passenger asked her driver to help her find an address. The driver asked her co-driver, what address did she need? Xiao asked her bodyguard in a cunning voice to find out Xiaodong's address for her. and was surprised to hear the girl tell her a boy's name. She decided that Chow was experiencing young love. The driver behind the wheel promised the girl in a joyful voice that everything would be ready for her by the evening. The protagonist was in his girlfriend's room. She commanded him to put his hands on the sides of the pillow and make his gaze less passionate. Xiao posed on the bed. He asked his girlfriend with interest, "Did he do the right thing?" Bai answered the guy that he did everything perfectly. The protagonist jumped up in bed. He couldn't understand who could possibly like such drawings featuring him. The guy stood on his feet. He reminded the girl in a displeased voice that he wanted to rest today. He didn't understand why she came to him. Bai, holding a drawing in her hands, turned around and told her friend that he was resting today. The student was drawing with concentration. She said excitedly that she was full of inspiration today. The protagonist told the girl in a very displeased voice that Chow had shown her true colors. The plan could be abandoned. The guy anxiously advised his friend to erase all of Chow's memories from the past few days. It wasn't clear exactly what this would lead to. Bai slyly explained to her friend that you can't cast a memory loss spell on the same person twice. The girlfriend asked the main character with displeasure, "Hasn't he really heard about the cooldown?" The girl turned around and looked slyly at the guy. She was curious what he would say in response. Siu explained to the schoolgirl in a dissatisfied voice that he should have erased all of Chow's memory back in the medical center. Bai looked slyly at the guy. She reminded him that he hadn't even asked her about it. The protagonist looked at the girl angrily. Chow slyly promised the guy that 3 days would fly by for him. Bai glanced slyly at the boy. She explained to him that she would need a pre-prepared magic circle. Last time, she had only erased his short-term memory. Xiu sighed with displeasure. He realized that he would have to fulfill his girlfriend's request. The protagonist told the girl in a displeased voice that she would have to wait another 3 days. Bai replied to her friend that she would definitely manage. The artist told the guy in a disgruntled voice that she had inspiration, but something was still missing. She needed a striking climax or an unexpected ending. The main character was very scared when he heard such words from his girlfriend. He was afraid that she might jinx something. At that moment, there was a loud knock at the door. Xiao asked his friend if she had ordered food delivery. Bai glanced away and said she hadn't ordered anything. The protagonist ran to the door. He couldn't figure out who could have come to them at such a time. Xiao opened the door to see who had come to see him. He decided that people might have come to the wrong door. The guy looked out the door in fear and saw Chow's evil eyes there. She looked at him predatorily. The protagonist grabbed the door and began to hold it with both hands. He couldn't let the girl come in. The frightened guy stood near the door. He couldn't understand what he had just seen. Xiao decided that he had imagined it all. Bai slyly peeked out from behind the door. She decided that the long-awaited climax had arrived. Then she was shocked to see Chao Jingsui standing before her. The protagonist pressed his back against the door in fear. He couldn't understand what he had just seen. Chao couldn't understand how the girl had figured him out. He decided that she had been following him since school. Sai reached out to the door handle. He told himself that he should be calm. The guy decided to himself that the events of the day had greatly affected him, and he was hallucinating. He decided to open the door again. The protagonist looked out into the hallway again. He saw his school friend standing there. Chao asked the protagonist in a disgruntled voice, "What just happened?" Xiao explained to his partner with a smile that he was happy to see her, and that's why he accidentally slammed the door. The guy inquired about the reason for the schoolgirl's arrival. Chao looked at the guy from the side, noticing he was saying anything. The schoolgirl told her friend that she happened to pass by his house to buy some tools. The guy couldn't believe the girl was walking past him by accident. He needed to come up with a reason to get her out. The protagonist glanced at his girlfriend and calmly explained to her that it was already very late. Behind him, the woman angrily advised the guy to let his girlfriend in. Xiu turned around, angry and displeased. He realized that girlfriend had changed her voice. The protagonist turned around very abruptly and glanced into the room. He saw that his girlfriend had hidden somewhere. Chao took off her shoes at the entrance and prepared to go inside the apartment. She apologized for disturbing her. Xiao turned around and shouted to the girl that she could leave her shoes at the door. He invited her to come in quickly. The protagonist told his guest that he would go and get her something to drink. The guy hoped that everything would work out for him. Suddenly, a lamp above sparkled brightly. After that, the light in the room went out completely. Xiao looked at the ceiling lamp in fear. He realized that the lights in the room had gone out. Xiao said in an angry voice that they hadn't warned her about this. She approached the protagonist from behind. The girl behind her reached out and grabbed the protagonist's hand. She called him by name. Xiao turned around and reassured his girlfriend. He told her that he would go and look at the machine gun now. Xiao explained to her friend that she was not scared at all. The guest told the guy in an angry voice that she just wanted to come to him and say hello. Xiao looked at the guy with a predatory gaze. She shouted at him that she simply couldn't hold back anymore. The boy wanted to run forward but fell to the ground. He saw that his legs were tied. Someone pulled him up. Xiao was hanging from the ceiling. He didn't understand when and how the girl managed to tie him up. The girl told the guy in an angry voice that she knew he would want to run away, so she had prepared a couple of tricks in advance. The guest took out a small knife and opened it. She asked the frightened boy why he wanted to run away. The main character fell to the floor. He screamed in a frightened voice at the girl to calm down. Xiao was lying on the floor. He asked the girl in a frightened voice, why did she have a knife with her? The guest held out a knife to the guy and said in an angry voice that she would not harm him. The girlfriend told Xiao in a sly voice that when she was alone with him, she simply could not control herself. Xiao told the protagonist from behind that he carried something within him that could fill her inner emptiness. The girl stood with a knife in her hands. She said that it seemed to attract her. Xiao glared at the guy. She shouted loudly at him that she wanted him to do something unusual. The guy was lying on the floor. He was in a great panic. He prayed and waited for the bai to save him quickly. Xiao looked closely at the protagonist. She told him in a displeased voice that all this was not very convenient. The guest extended her utility knife forward and helped to get rid of the ropes on her legs. The knife cut the ropes and the boy felt that he could now move his legs. Xiao happily decided to himself that he now had a chance to free himself completely. The protagonist leaned back sharply on the floor. He decided to try to jump to his feet right away. Xiao continued to sway on the floor, but he was still unable to rise fully to his feet. Xiao looked at him in surprise. The protagonist realized he couldn't get up from a prone position. From that moment on, he decided to start exercising. Xiao moved forward toward the prone boy. She said that Xiao looked very charming even when she was trying to escape. The girl held a knife in her hands and looked closely at the protagonist. She studied him with her eyes. She liked to watch him panic. Bai was watching all this from the side. To keep from screaming, she covered her mouth with both hands. The protagonist looked at his girlfriend with displeasure. He saw that she had been watching him from under the bed. The guy couldn't understand why the frightened Bai hid under the bed and didn't want to come out. Bai thought to herself in horror that a crazy girl had come to the apartment at night and started playing games with tying. The protagonist glared at his girlfriend. He wanted her to help him already. The schoolgirl watched her friend closely. She realized that this was how the plot had now turned and how it would end. Bai was very happy. She thought this ending would be wonderful. An angry Xiao thought that if things continued like this, it wouldn't just be his girlfriend's manga that would get into trouble. The frightened girl covered her mouth with her hands to keep from screaming. She was very afraid for her friend. Xiao looked at the main character with displeasure and asked where he was looking like that. The girl held a knife in her hands. She angrily told the guy that at a moment like this he shouldn't be distracted. The protagonist couldn't understand why the girl called herself shy. He didn't see such a wonderful feeling in her. Xiao wanted to say something to his classmate in a frightened voice. The girl reached out to his face. She asked him in an angry voice, does he really want to run away from her again? The guest gave the protagonist a sly sideways glance. She angrily told him that he needed to be properly punished. Xiao was very scared. He looked closely and saw something in the girl's hand. The protagonist saw how Xiao wanted to shut his mouth with a piece of clothing so that he would not scream. Xiao looked at the guy with interest. She liked it when he was confused. Xiao couldn't say anything because of the gag in his mouth. The protagonist tried to free himself or scream, but at that moment the girl grabbed his clothes with her hands. The guest placed her hands on the protagonist's stomach. She said his body was even stronger than she expected. Xiao saw that the girl was holding a knife. Xiao continued to keep her hands on the protagonist's body. The guy was afraid that she could expose him now. Xiao thought to himself in fear that if the girl revealed his secret now, she could hurt him. The main character was very scared. He realized that he couldn't allow this to happen now. Bai continued to hide under the bed and closely watch the main character and his girlfriend. Anan wanted to see as much of the plot as possible. She decided that such a story would definitely make the cut. The girl was very delighted and happy. She knew it would be impossible to resist such a picture. Bai was unhappy because she forgot to take her tablet with her. The girl stretched out her hand in front of her with displeasure. After that, she suddenly hit her hand on the bottom of the bed. Bai was afraid that with one awkward movement she had just given away her location. Xiao jumped to her feet with a knife. She told the guy in an angry voice that there was a thief in his house. The guest stepped forward to the bed. She shouted that such thieves must be punished. The frightened Bai lay on the floor. The frightened protagonist looked at Xiao. She said in an angry voice that she saw a familiar face from school. Xiao said with a very joyful voice, holding a knife in her hand, that she saw in front of her the head of the disciplinary committee, Bai Anan. The student asked Bai in an angry voice, how did she get here? The protagonist realized that his girlfriend had intervened at the right moment. He knew she wouldn't leave him alone. Bai gestured to the guy that she had no intention of interfering. The protagonist thought with displeasure that his girlfriend was very easy to read. Xiao abruptly thrust her knife forward. Bai looked at her very frightened. The guest held a knife near the protagonist's head. She told the guy that he was discussing something very persistently with the thief. Xiao was very scared. He shook his head in all directions to explain that he had not discussed anything with the girl under the bed. The guest, with a knife in her hand, told the protagonist that it no longer mattered at all what he had discussed with the girl. Yanan was very scared. She couldn't even move from the spot out of fear and saw the outline of a knife in front of her.